All right. We are live, and joining me today is Kimia, my good friend. She's the founder of Shadow. I'm really thrilled to finally connect with you. How you doing today? How are you,
Hi, I'm so glad to connect again, Charles. How are you?
man?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day in LA, so
Y-
can't complain.
Yeah, the
What
weather is lovely, and it's been a while since we caught up, so it's really good to catch up in this fashion. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so how about we just jump right into it? You can start by just tell me a little bit more about your background, like what led you to start Shadow.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so my background is in social media, graphic design, and influencer marketing. And I started out by doing social media for some of the biggest festivals in the world. I was on the team for Coachella, Stagecoach, all Golden Voice festivals. And it was funny because I had thought of the idea for Shadow in college, and then this was my first job outside of college. And that's when I really wanted to bring it to life. And the reason I started Shadow was because I realized there's so many like-minded young professionals, creatives, people who want to go out, find new things to do, and like find the coolest things to do. But there wasn't really a platform for that or anything really. And then especially working and like being in all these marketing meetings for these big festivals, these big shows, I'm like, wow, there's really no, place to advertise cool stuff going on in real time and location. So that's kind of where I first thought of the idea. And then we started Shadow Out actually by creating a WhatsApp group. And me and my friend filled it
I
with
remember
our
that.
most,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we filled it we were realizing that's where we were getting most of our intel from for like the coolest things going on. It's like our most connected friends, so we're like, okay, let's put this WhatsApp group together of like our most connected friends in LA. And we put them all there. We're like, hey, you guys are our most connected friends. This group is for trading parties, so have at it. And honestly, we did it around Coachella, and I was actually working that year. But I just remember like the WhatsApp group kind of took off, and it's like people were not only trying to, find what the best parties were, and literally all of them were going through our channel, but then they were also trying to meet up, and they were like, what other Shadow members are at this party? Let's meet up, come say hi. And so I think that was the interesting part about Shadow from the beginning was it was like, whoa, people are actually, trying to meet each other, and like that's where the community ended up being born. It was like, it wasn't just about finding the best thing to do. It was also about finding the best people to do it with, too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember that because I was a part of that group as well. And I
Yeah.
remember it was like highly engaged too. Like people really was active on it. I was very active on it. And
Yeah.
that's what really kind of made me a huge fan of Shadow is because we were able to kind of bring all of these really cool creatives together in this space. And you really drove engagement between all of us. And that was pretty cool. And that's very hard to do. So congrats on that. That was really a big move for you. Um,
Thank you.
is that something that you still kept going? I know you kind of like evolved into your own app. Is that where you're at now?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's where we're at now. So we ended up growing that WhatsApp community to like over 3,000 people in different groups. But we realized a couple things. I mean, there was no way to gatekeep it. So the quality kind of went down. And then when we finally started our actual app, we decided to like have really rigorous, you know, levels to being able to join. So that's where we're at now, where we have our MVP of our app, and we're kind of still, I call it beta
Yeah.
testing. I mean, I say that because it's been out for a while, but like it's still not at the place that it should be. But basically, so we have, yeah, we have like a application process. You have to already know a couple people within the community, and then you also have the applications get sent to like um, community directors, and then they'll approve people. And so it's a lot more rigorous than just joining a WhatsApp group.
Oh, wow.
But we do that in order to preserve the quality
Yeah.
of all the members within the group and making sure everyone has something to contribute. Um, but yeah, the unique thing about the shadow community is always that they have a couple things in common. So we look for highly connected people just to make sure they have something to contribute.
Yeah.
And then we look for this work hard, play hard type of person. So,
Sounds like me.
um, yeah, exactly. Because it's like, you know, there's a lot of people who love to play hard, but they don't love to work
uh,
hard. And so it's like we kind of, we want to make sure it's a like minded community. Um, but that intersection of work hard, play hard is such a unique person. And it's just like made our community so vibrant and like, it's not only people going to parties together, it's also people networking, finding their next business deal, finding their next partner. And that's also something that the reason I created Shadow too is because I was getting so much value from going to high value
yeah.
events. It's like that's how I was building my network. And it's like your network is your net worth. And I, my one of my theories is that like event discovery and community and networking should be all in one platform, kind of, and that's why Shadow is as much networking as it is event discovery.
I love that idea a lot. I think there's like a huge opportunity for that. And honestly, I think Shadow just feels like the ideal solution for that. So I think I'm a huge fan of that. I love that. So, but it sounds like, okay, you are building this like social club, if you will, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a social club.
Yeah, it's like a digital social club.
Okay. So, how, I mean, to my understanding, it's very difficult to build a social club. Is that, how are you navigating that now?
Yeah, so that's actually something interesting too, and a lesson that I learned from the WhatsApp groups because, the more you try to grow something that's supposed to be selective, um, that's where you kind of compromise quality. So, that has been a big challenge, honestly, is like how do you grow something without compromising the quality. And because of that, I've always been okay with growing Shadow at a slower rate
Hmm.
because, I think that's the mistake we made with our WhatsApp groups. We were like, oh, let's just grow it. And then it was like, wait, who are these people? Like, you want to make sure you're keeping the quality high. There's not like scammers in the group or something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, because it's like, I mean, anywhere you go, there's going to be those types of people. So that's why now I'm like, okay, we have this formula down, and it's a formula that we've been like working on a lot. Honestly, it's like, what's the number of the referrals that you should be getting from community members? What's the number of votes you should be getting from community managers? And just basically having like, you know, outside, not only one person letting you in, but it's like the whole community is kind of agreeing like this person will contribute and be a good part of our community. But yeah, that's definitely been a challenge, is like how do you grow it without growing too fast or too quickly. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, it's like you want to build those network effects, but you also want
Exactly.
to maintain that quality and have like that quality control just
Yeah.
perfectly engaged, right? Um,
Yeah.
but even with that being said, do you still see a demand for that type of exclusivity? Like, what's the clientele for it?
Yeah, I definitely do because I actually think um there like I think people want to have things in common
Yeah.
with other people, and so that's like on one hand, I hate the word exclusive because it's like you're excluding people, but on the other hand, you're including people who have things in common with each other. So that's what I like about those type of models. And then even myself, like going through life, it's like you do want to like pick quality over quantity for everything, you know, for what you're doing, for going out on a regular basis. Like you just want to make sure you are surrounding yourself by like-minded people. And you know, I think that's also um something that helps shape. And I, you know, a lot of exclusive in-person venues and stuff are also on the rise, like
Yeah,
members only clubs. And I think it's because there's a demand for it too, and people want community, they want a place where they belong. um and I think it's interesting though to have different types of communities too, which is
yeah.
like why. And I think when I first started Shadow, I was like trying to maybe even copy some of the existing communities,
Mm.
and realized like, wait, no, that's not work. Like those already exist, you know, we should become our own community. And that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, we're a work hard play hard community,
Yeah.
like that's highly connected. So it's like those three things um kind of really shape what Shadow
I
is.
love
Yeah.
that. Work hard, play hard. That's like my MO. You know, I'm all about
Yeah.
that life. Sign me up ASAP. I'm all about it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. It sounds like, you know, you did identify there is a need for belonging and connectivity. But like, why did you decide to be the person to solve that?
Interesting actually. So a couple reasons. Well, I think like in high school it was kind of, you know, everyone has that high school story. So for me it was like I always wanted more friends, and like it was hard for me at the time to make friends. I wasn't allowed to go out as much as the other people. So it's like I just didn't have these opportunities. And then like once you get to college, then I went to design school. So even that was like, okay, there's, you know, there's no Greek life. It's not easy to make friends with people only who are in your class. So then it kind of became this mission for me. And I also, you know, I've struggled with mental health issues like depression and stuff. And one thing I realized that always solves that is like when I go out and I'm surrounded by friends. And it's like it immediately always had solved that for me. So it's like you go from being lonely in one stage and then you're like out on the town with your friends, and you're all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm happy, life's good. So I think that was, you know, honestly the real reason that I wanted to start it. It's like, okay, we have this loneliness now epidemic. Um, and one thing that solves it is literally being surrounded by friends, peers, family, um, at events, being out and about, you know, being out on the town. And then it's like, okay, so now what's the difficulty to get to there? And I did feel like there's a lot of difficulty. So like, and it's funny because it's like kind of traveled with me all of my life. So in high school, it was like, how do you find the best house parties going on? Like you just have to text all your friends. Then college, it's like, how do you find the best like party or pregame or whatever? Then it's like, after college, it's like, okay, where's all, you know, where are all your friends at? Like, what bar is the best place to go to? What club is the best place to go to? And there's really no curated platform that shows all of that. So that's why I was like, why doesn't that exist? Like, there should be a platform that makes it easier to see what's going on tonight and, you know, kind of bring everyone together.
I love that a lot. So I mean, you've been building communities for quite some time now, and you've done it successfully. Like, what does a community actually mean? I know there's so many different definitions for it. Some people say or think it's just a group chat, or is it like a forum? Like, what exactly is a community?
Yeah, so what is a community? So I've heard communities being defined as like something that everyone can participate in versus an audience is there's someone, a leader or whoever you're watching, they are doing something and then the audience is just watching and taking part. But a community is where there's maybe like a topic or something and then the whole community is participating. And so that's why the group chats as communities work. Um, and then I think I've also seen, I was actually reading this newsletter by David Spinks, and he was talking about how communities emerge. And he was like bringing back the example in the animal kingdom. It's like, you know, there's flocks of seagulls, there's herds of cows, and but you don't just call them a group of seagulls, you don't just call it a group of cows. Like, he's saying there's certain rules that you have to follow, and there's like certain things that make the flock of seagulls a flock of seagulls. It's like, okay, you have to fly somewhat close together, you have to go in a certain direction, and you know, you don't leave that, and that's what makes it a flock of seagulls. It's like there's these, you know, kind of unwritten rules that you have to follow in order to make it that. So I think that's also kind of what can make up a community. It's like, and where Shadow came through, it was like this party crowdsourcing. Like, people were trading events and like trading opportunities and stuff going on, but it's like you're contributing as much as you're consuming too. So it's kind of this like unwritten rule where you're like, okay, I have to contribute in order to be a part of this community and to keep this community growing, because that's what a community thrives on, is the people in it. But yeah, I think and I think communities can come in a lot of different formats too, and that's actually something that I was wondering. Like, is it the forum, you know, space? Is it the group chat? Like, what's better? We ended up doing both
Yeah.
in our app, and it's interesting to see like where more engagement comes about, and I've been surprised in different ways too. And I think and I'm starting to realize that the format actually doesn't quite matter sometimes. Well, I think it
Oh,
depends. It like depends what the topic is, and it depends like what you're also trying to accomplish. So if you have like a huge group chat on WhatsApp, that's gonna get a, you know, that's when the forum would be more useful rather than like a giant group chat of everyone just firing off questions and notifying everyone in the chat.
right. But I also think what you've done really well is that you didn't only keep it all online, right? You brought us all IRL, you know. So it was like a perfect blend of both. You know, we would engage online in whatever forum, group chat, but then you would produce these events and then bring people together. So I'll be like, oh, I remember you. We chatted last week
Mm-hmm.
about so and so topic, and here you are in real life. So it kind of makes those connections feel much more deeper and resonate much more because of, you know, you're pretty much doing a blend
Mm-hmm.
of both. And that's really hard to do. So I would say, you know, the fact that you're able to do that and still, you know, grow the community and maintain the quality that you have, you know, it's really impressive. I got to say, like, for the listeners at home though, because a lot of, you know, people are curious about building their own community, but they don't really know where to start. Like, what would you say, or what's been your strategy for community building?
Um, I would say find find things that people in common. I think there's like a minimum threshold of qualities that you can have in common with someone in order to like create a community. For example, like I have an Australian friend who, when I was traveling in New York, you know, she was part of a WhatsApp group that was like Aussies in the city. So it's like you have the your location is what's in common, like where you currently are, and then also where you're from, and like you have that background of, a shared, you guys are all from the same place and you're in this new place, so that's like creating that community. And then I have a friend who she was she was doing a lot of female founder events, and that was also a great community because it's like, okay, not only are we all founders, we're also all female, and so it's like we have these two common points that we can connect with each other with. I think that's when you're meeting new people and making new friends, I think that's the one thing you have to do first is like find what you have in common with each other. And that's why communities are so strong. It's because you kind of already know you're in a place where you have something in common with someone else. And I think the best communities really do a good job of highlighting what that is. So it's like, you go, if you're just going, I don't know if you've had experience too with that. It's like if you just go to maybe a regular tech event with, it's just free for all, it might be kind of hard to talk to someone versus if you go to like something, like we hosted a consumer social tech event and it's like, oh, everyone here loves consumer social. Like we all have something to talk
Oh
about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You can just almost immediately feel it when you walk into a room and you realize, okay, I'm not sure if this space is quite
Mm-hmm.
for me. You feel it
Yeah.
immediately. And you also feel it the opposite way, right? You might walk into a space and be like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
love it here. You know, everyone's my
Yeah.
type of people. The vibes are like
Mm.
on point. You
Yeah.
just feel it either way. You will definitely notice that. And honestly, with some of the experiences that you've felt that I've shown up to, I got that feeling immediately like, wow, I love it here. These people are so cool. And to me, I think like the best events are usually the ones with the right people in it. If you have the right people in it, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a good time no matter what. Like, you got all the coolest people here, so
Mm.
I'm vibing. You know, I think when it comes to any aspect of the community, it's really kind of like zeroing down on who is this community
Mm-hmm.
for and being able to build
Yeah.
from there. And you've done that so well. I've been taking notes like, okay, Kamina, she knows what she's doing. Let's see how she's, getting all these people in the same room. I think that's really, really cool. I also wanted to I'm really curious though, and I wanted to segue into, how you've been bringing those events to life. You've hosted a lot of events. Can you talk to me about some of those events you've done?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Yeah, we've done a lot. I guess we started out, one of our first events was in LA at adults only, and it was just a pure shadow event. But we've done a lot since then. We've done, and the interesting thing that I like to do is do all different types of events. So it's like whether it's a 300-person party to, a 60-person listening event with new artists to a 20-person dinner around a topic or around a certain industry. I've I've really realized that there's a need for all those type of events, and they all have different kind of perks to them. So yeah, and
Yeah.
so I would say, and then we also came up with a concept recently that we've done twice now, which is like kind of this shadow house or shadow trip concept, where a lot of our members are going to, the biggest conferences, festivals. So they're all going to Coachella, Art Basel, South by Southwest, and that's a time when our community is super highly engaged, and there's obviously so many events going on during those times. So we
Yeah.
we took this approach where we're like, we don't want to compete with these events, but what if we had you know, a space, a house for shadow members to book rooms at, and then that's where they're going to be staying with shadow members. And we will have like smaller dinners, happy hours, and then a
Mm.
wellness day at our space in between these, like, all the crazy Art Basel events and the
Oh,
Coachella events. So yeah, we did this model twice now, and it's been really working. For Coachella, we actually had two houses because we had so much,
oh,
a want for it. So, and we did a mix of shadow members and then a lot of creators who are on the platform too, and like, and we ended up getting some brands involved, because we had a lot of
okay.
creators.
Oh, okay. So, like, how's that work exactly? Like, you rent the house and you kind of sub rent it to
Yeah.
creators?
So, well, what we did for the Shadow House for Shadow members, we um we rent an Airbnb, and then we rent each room out. Basically, someone can rent the whole room out, bring their friends as long as they're shadow approved. Um, or we also offered this thing where we realized, people are coming solo, they don't want to rent a whole room out. So we actually had
Mm.
gender rooms, where you would pay for a bed space, and then we would match you up with either other male shadow members or other female shadow members. And that was actually has been our most popular option. Yeah, which is
Really?
interesting too. Well, one of the most it's like it's kind of split in two. So it's like you'll have half the house being rented out by people who are taking the full rooms, and then there will be at
Yeah.
least two full rooms that are like mixed. And then those people, we've noticed, will stick together the entire time. And so it's like they're making these like lifelong friends and connections just from, yeah. So that's also been really fun to see.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay, no, that's really interesting. I'm actually trying to like picture that in my mind. Um, so is it popular because it's like more cost effective for them? Is that
Yeah.
like a better alternative than getting my own hotel?
Okay, so it's interesting. I would say, it's more so not necessarily getting a whole room to yourself is probably the exact same cost as getting a hotel room. I think it's people wanting the experience of meeting new people, having this like community to come home to or to leave for parties with. Um, and then it is more cost effective if you're coming alone for sure. And then so that's also why. But we had people who, they definitely could have, got like, we have groups of 3 or 4 people, and it's like they could have gotten their own
Mm.
hotel room, but they ended up deciding to do this. Another thing I forgot to mention, which is part of the Shadow House perks, we guarantee access to at least 2 or 3 top events if you're staying at the Shadow House, and that's through our connections. So, that's obviously a huge perk. It's like, because that's one of the main things around Art Basel and Coachella and stuff. It's like there's so many parties around it that you really can only get into if you know the right people. And so that's another thing that we do. And it's a lot of work to RSVP to all of those. So we are like, hey, we'll guarantee you into usually at least 3 of these top parties if you're staying at the Shadow House. Um, and we don't even
Oh,
charge extra for that. It's just kind of like that's a perk that you.
so do you have like exclusive relationships with these event organizers? Or how are you able to
Yeah,
guarantee?
so we're sending them a lot of creators too. So, I already have
Yeah.
that relationship with them, and then it is they also want cool people at their parties too. So it's like they know we're already curating the Shadow House. It's like, by the way, we don't just let anyone stay at the house. Like if I don't know them personally, then I'll have to video interview them, make sure they'll fit with everyone else who's staying at the house. Yeah,
Oh,
because
wow.
it's like, they're going to be staying together. Like this is like we
Yeah.
need to make sure they're all, um safe people, fun, cool, easy to get along with. So, and with all that being said, it's like, event organizers also want those types of people at their event. Shadow members, again,
Hmm.
they're all, um, highly connected, successful, so usually somewhat high net worth, or they're creators, creatives, they're, fashionistas, they look good, they dress well. So it's
Yeah.
like these are the type of people who business.
Is that the criteria to join? Like you have to have one of
Kind
those
of,
buckets?
yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's basically how successful are you, how connected are you, and then how.
So, like, what's the minimum bar with that? How are you gauging that? Like, what do you deem successful? What's considered
Yeah.
successful enough?
So it's interesting because that's obviously, it's somewhat hard to like put a exact number to that. We don't, that's not what we do. Um but
Yeah.
we have this criteria where we're like, we want people to be contributing to the community. So it's like, if you are unemployed and you don't know anyone, and you're just, it's just like you probably just don't have much you can contribute, to be honest. So it's like, why don't you apply again in a
Right.
couple months when you have a job at a cool company or at a known company? So that's kind of like, but I also do see this thing where it's like, okay, this person has an entry level job at this great company, there's potential in them. We're not saying, because we have different tiers within Shadow. So um
Yeah.
that's like an internal tier. But it's like, okay, this person they're on track to becoming successful. And then again, it's having that work hard, play hard attitude. So it's like, as long as someone's ambitious,
Mm.
and wants to push forward their career, wants to push forward their connections, then it's like, that's what we use. And that's also why we have this formula of referrals as well as community leader votes to like approve someone. It's not just one person saying, okay, this,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I get that. Yeah, I get that because it's like if you're ambitious and that's typically one of the main ingredients to become
right.
successful, right? So hey, if this person is highly ambitious, they're out there, they're a go-getter, they're doing it. Eventually, if they stay consistent, they will reach a
Mm-hmm.
certain level. So you still want to nurture those relationships even at that
Yeah,
point, right? So when they do get to that level of success, that I mean, you're already friends with them. You already know who they are, and you got to earn
exactly,
it. You
exactly.
know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's kind of like believing
Yeah.
in someone, like, and investing in them, and from when they might not be the top of the top. But yeah.
Right. 100%. So like how does community or how does all of that fuel your events? Does that actually help you produce better events? How's how is community really
Yeah,
impacting that?
definitely. So um yeah, when I'm like inviting people to an event, depending on the size of the event, but I'm very I guess selective. Like, some of the best events really do depend on the people who are there. So I like to be kind of selective and thoughtful with who I'm inviting. And I make sure that people can kind of like take something away from from someone else who's going to be there, or I'll like in my mind do some matchmaking,
Hmm.
like, okay, you know these type of people will get along, these, this person and this person will get along. And then also when I'm doing that, then sometimes in person I will definitely go and introduce people while they're at the event, because I'm like, wait, you need to meet this person, you need to meet this person. And that's also really helpful too, because sometimes when you're at an event and you don't know anyone, it's like that. And that's something that we always try to do, is like, no, say hi to everyone, like it's a friendly place. Shadow members in the community is all about making new friends. we don't, so something we don't like is someone who's like the no new friends type of attitude,
Mm. Do you get
which
that
is
a lot?
big.
Like, do you get people who actually come in and be like, I'm gonna be snobby and not really engage?
Well, not to the events
Yeah.
actually, but I think it's funny, like when we first launched the app, and I was like going around and being like, oh, these people kind of fit the criteria of shadow members, and I'll ask them to download the app and join the community. It was honestly from that point where they're like not interested, you know. So it's like they kind of filter themselves out,
Mm.
uh, which I also understand, because it's like, you know, they may be, um, you know, they're probably, they have a degree of success that they have so many people kind of coming to them for too many things. So I see where they're coming from. You know, it's not, and
Yeah.
it goes both ways. There's also those type of people who still enjoy meeting people and talking to people, no matter what their level of success is. So um, but that's another thing that we also realize. It's like we'll do these higher end events and dinners too, putting all of those people in a room together. So that's why I say we have this like internal tier in
Okay.
shadow, um, because again, we want to be thoughtful on, you know, like let's not put a top executive in the same room with like interns, you
Right,
know,
exactly. Because they're like, wait,
unless
what's
there's a need for that. But
yeah.
yeah, it's like you usually want to like be thoughtful of what people can contribute to each other, and yeah, we've done some dinners with some pretty heavy hitters, and they all had amazing feedback, and they were all like, you know, trying to connect with each other too, so it was
Yeah.
kind of cool to do that.
Wow, wow, wow. It sounds like you're very thoughtful. You thought through every little detail on how you want the community experience to evolve and grow. Uh, I think that's really impressive. So, like, I know you mentioned you've done things with brands. Are you able to speak on that a little bit more? Like, what are these brand activations? What's your process with that?
Yeah. So one thing, so because shadow members are like highly connected, they usually go to a lot of free events. So we don't charge for our events. We usually get them sponsored by brands, and that process is a very time consuming process. I
Mm.
think that people, at least for me, it has been. I think that's like a misconception that even I had when I was first starting. I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually kind of difficult to get money for an event that you're throwing.
Yeah.
I think that's been just amplified in the past, like since, you know, the economy hasn't been doing as well. A lot of companies' marketing budgets have gone down, and you'll see that just in general. Like
Yeah.
Art Basel 2021 was like, oh my God, so many parties, so much money into all these parties. Like it was insane. And then 2022 came, and it was like, oh, like, I'm like, you know, did the party list get cut in half? Like, there's definitely a lot less, even like you can see
Like
it. Oh,
the difference was that significant.
yeah, maybe not half,
Yeah.
but you know, it was pretty significant. And I even had friends. I've had a lot of friends recently who have had to cancel amazing events that they're doing just because they couldn't get the funding for it, for both for like F1, Miami Swim Week, Art Basel. And it's like, it sucks because we all want to go to these events. We know how powerful they are, and we know the value we're getting as an attendee. And I mean, I usually, if it's a good event, I'll remember the brand who is throwing it. You know, I'll use their products. So I always see the ROI, but it's, you know, these events cost a lot of money. So um, that's why I think it's been a lot more difficult to get this type of money. But one thing that I try to do, and it's interesting, if if you're doing a last minute event, which we've definitely done a couple of those, it's a lot more difficult to get money from a bigger company because they have to go through so many approvals and through so many levels of people in the company. So that's something I noticed. If you want to like work with a bigger company, you definitely have to plan it months and months ahead of time. um However, some smaller companies are always able to do something last minute. So it's not impossible to do last minute events too, and just work with like smaller companies that are more able to get like approvals quickly approved. Um, and then, yeah, one thing I also look for is like, okay, what companies are spending money right now? Are they doing other events? Like, is that something important to them? If we're doing a creator, or if we're going to have creators at our event, like let's go for some creator companies. Even if we're doing something, okay, what about an AI, like an AI media company that uses creators for what they're doing, like that could be someone who would want to invest in our event. And then it's also looking at like the types of companies that are hot right now. So that's why I
Wow.
say AI could be a good one, or tech. But I've also realized that most of the companies that I've ended up partnering with, I have had a personal relationship with that company.
Oh,
So yeah. So even though we'll do a mix of both, which is like cold outreach and warm outreach. I've realized it's always the warm outreach ones that end up actually coming in because it makes sense. It's like they know you, they know what who you know, and they're like they've seen what you do versus you know working with a completely stranger that doesn't actually know what you are capable of.
and
So
do you think that's like the economy has a lot to do with that? Since people marketing teams and their budgets are tight, are they being a little bit more picky or more stingy with the budget? Is that why?
yeah, definitely. It's also like some of them are altogether not even putting budget towards that, or it's like we'll have someone who worked with us for Art Basel, and then now Coachella's coming around, and it's like you think they would also be doing stuff there, and it's like no, they stopped everything. They're not even activating at Coachella this year. So
Wow.
we've seen a lot of that. Um, but I think it's also like again the type of company, because not all companies are struggling right now.
Yeah.
So it's more like finding the ones who aren't and who are doing well and want to you know market themselves the most. And I think it's like really coming up with a clear story of how your event will benefit their company, and also doing the work and making sure it happens, because we've worked with some people who maybe weren't able to, or I've seen it happen where it's like they weren't quite able to give that sponsor, that partner, what they needed or wanted, and then it's like you don't want an unhappy brand
Yeah.
sponsor either. Yeah. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think being able to deliver on your promise, especially
yeah.
after, you've done all of that work to land the deal, built that
Mhm.
trust, you don't want to like tarnish that relationship by not being able to do what you said you're going to do.
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
that's 100% accurate. Uh, like, so like, what categories would you say are like most active for you now in terms of doing deals?
um So like like what brand
Yeah.
categories? We've had, I guess we've had a lot of, yeah, honestly, all of our biggest sponsors have been like tech platforms.
Oh,
But,
wow.
like, yeah. So, um,
Really?
yeah, but I think that might just be unique to me because I'm like, I don't know as many people who have like CPG companies that are making a ton of money or something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
especially, right now in this environment, it's like really tough for CPG brands right now.
yeah. Um, and we've also worked with uh, like JP Morgan Private Bank, and so they, want to work with high net worth individuals. So we'll curate those dinners, like I mentioned before, that are kind of, you know,
Okay.
curating that type of person. And then for some of the other companies that we've partnered with, like OTH, which stands for On the House, it's
Yeah.
it's a creator business marketplace. So for when we partnered with them, we were making sure to invite a ton of creators. They're launching in LA, so it really helped bring our LA network to them. Um, and it was amazing because our our communities go hand in hand. Where
Right.
yeah, so that was a really great relationship. We worked with ShopX, which is it's an e-commerce like e-commerce for Web3 kind of. And I'm like,
Huh.
I might be butchering the explanation, but
Yeah.
that also worked really well because it's like that was one of our bigger events where it was like a 300 person um, NFT event in Miami, and so it went hand in hand too with what they were doing.
Oh wow. Okay. That really does shed a lot of perspective for especially people who are looking to secure sponsorships for their events. To think outside the box, think outside of categories that you may not even really expect might be interested and activating in a room full of creators, right?
Yeah.
And it seems that you understood how to like think outside the box to go after those categories because tech, isn't really a category that a lot of like creators would think might want to sponsor a party, right? And it's really fascinating that you've done that. So like, are you able to talk about like what's it like working with all of those creators? I imagine there's some ups and downs with that.
um, I actually had really great experience as far as creators coming to events recently, which is interesting because I've worked with creators a lot in the past, and I would say some of the past experiences weren't as good. Um, but no, I would say everyone was like super happy to be at the event. You know, they do what you ask them to, which is amazing. Um, they're not like too snobby or like, oh, I would get paid so much to do this. They're like kind of coming in. They're like, who do we tag? Who do we thank? They're very grateful. So,
Oh wow.
and I think it's also kind of like what we mentioned earlier, which is like selecting and going after those people who kind of fit the shadow um, mold, which is someone who wants to be social, wants to make new friends. They're ambitious, so they want to grow their network. So it's still like even finding those types of personalities within creators. And yeah, like our creator house for Coachella, I was actually a little worried. I was like, what's this going to be like putting all these creators in a house together?
Yeah.
Because the creator house, of course, the brands paid for them to stay there versus our shadow member house, the members were paying for. So I was like, what's going to happen? Is there going to be like drama or something? But we were really, really thoughtful of who we placed in what room.
Yeah.
Um, and, we did a lot of activities for people to meet each other, put everyone in a group chat, had everyone introduce themselves, and like we're really fostering connection. And also with this, like, some of them were coming solo. So it's like, again, they stayed with their friends who they were in the room with like throughout the whole weekend and like
Wow.
we're walking around with them. So that was really fun to see come to life. And yeah, honestly, we the only thing the event or like our my event organizer partner uh at the end were like, ooh, some of them didn't really clean up after themselves, but not.
Like, well, these left a mess. Like, well, somebody else worrying about that.
Yeah, so that was maybe the only thing, but it wasn't everyone. It was just a couple
Yeah.
people. So even
Okay.
that, it's like, um, and I don't think they were probably expecting like, and that's another thing too. It's like, okay, if it's an Airbnb, you're already paying a cleaning fee. Technically, they should be cleaning it. So,
Right,
so
right, right. Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Wow, no, you've done quite a bit. Really, you have a lot of experience working both with creators, brands, and producing events. So you kind of like understand that whole ecosystem and how it really works. Um, I know you've also activated a lot of like with a lot of nightlife spaces, some hospitality spaces. Do you find like the nightlife space to be a huge draw for your community? Like, what's been like the impact and growth for your business when you do something with nightlife?
Yeah, that's actually interesting. I would say because we were doing that a lot in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, but then I realized it actually isn't as much of a draw because I think, well, it's both. So I think if you're doing something like unique, um, like one event that we did, we partnered with Dombreski, the DJ, and we took over Kiss Kiss Bang Bang in Koreatown. And so that was like a huge success because obviously Dombreski, he's an amazing
Yeah.
up and amazing producer and DJ, and and the space is like gorgeous over there, has all these neon lights and sequins and stuff,
Yeah.
and so having a disco party at that venue with the amazing Dombreski, and then inviting shadow members, and just that was like really unique. But then we've done something where it was just kind of like just the normal night out at this venue, actually at the Roosevelt Hotel. So it was cool, but like we realized, okay, maybe we need to have like another unique spin to it to
Mm.
really like attract people. Because I think, and then we've done a lot of house parties too, and people love the house
House
parties,
party. Yeah.
even though they're more expensive to produce. But I think it's all about like at the end of the day, shadow members do want to have a conversation. They want to meet people. So it's like also when you're doing something at like a nightlife spot where the music is super loud and it's super dark, it's a little more difficult to meet people.
Mm.
But I do think there's like the ways to do it correctly, and so that's actually something that I'm gonna be thinking about more this year. Is like, why don't we do them less often,
Yeah.
but do them with a bang. So I'm looking to partner with some friends who do events in LA and New York too. So we're kind of getting both of our communities there.
Wow. I think you hit the hammer on the nail. Uh, I think it's really about being very intentional with
Yeah.
the events and the experiences you're curating, right? You know, if I just wanted to go out on a Saturday night, then there's a plethora of options for me, right? I could go anywhere.
Right.
But sometimes if you want to build that community, you have to be very intentional with how you want to design those experiences. So nightlife could be a really good strong tool and a strong driver depending
Mhm.
on your strategy and how you approach it and what you want to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
I try to like really um, tell a lot of brands and advise a lot of brands that hey, you need a nightlife strategy. You can't
Mm,
approach it blindly, otherwise
totally.
you're not going to get the ROI you're looking to get out of it
Yeah.
without a strategy. So I think for sure being able to identify what you want, what your community wants, and
Yeah.
being able to like move with that type of intention behind it, it's really
Yeah.
going to be like the bread and butter of your success with it. um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
no, 100%. You know, what else are you looking forward to in 2024? Like, what do you have in the works?
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing a lot more in-person events too, which I'm excited about. So one thing that I mean, because the Shadow House concept went so well, that's something that we really want to continue. And, you know, even taking it international and like doing something around Paris Fashion Week or, another one of these high volume events that are like that's kind of where the center of culture and fashion, music, art, like those events that are bringing these people together. That's something that we like want to continue hitting. And then also we I want to have like more of a regular LA meetup essentially too, because I'm like, okay, we'll do events here and there, and I like having a variety of these events, but
Yeah.
maybe keeping kind of like a cadence of dinners, and we want to eventually have like a dinner matching concept where we're matching up people and then organizing a dinner for them ahead of time, and we would be doing that through our platform. So yeah, so that's actually something. And we have a lot of new designs for our platform, and
Oh,
we're going to be doing a new launch too, so that's also something to look out for.
wow, wow! I love that. I love that. So, like, when can we expect this launch?
um Probably around after summer, so like
All right,
in the fall. Yeah.
fall. Okay, wow. I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for that one. Kamaya, this was great. This is phenomenal. Before we kind of like wrap this up, is there anything else you wanted to plug for the audience to kind of get to know about?
um No, not really. I mean, I had a super amazing time chatting with you, and you also have done such an amazing job with your platform and your company, and I'm excited to see what we can do together. And
Yeah,
no, and I love talking to other people whose mission is similar, because it's like we all have to stick together at the end of the day, and like,
one
you
hundred
know,
percent, 100%.
bringing people together is like
Yeah,
what
no,
the world needs right now. So,
absolutely. You know, you and I we go way back. So if there's
yeah.
ever anything, you just give me a phone call and it's done. It's done.
Thank you. Same with
Yeah,
you. Same with you.
100%. Thanks again for hopping on the show. Today was a pleasure, and
Yeah,
it was a really good conversation. Thank you so much.